Good, glad you could be here for the second day of the Maastricht Institute. And we're ready for our second speaker of the session. So, Milena, if you would come up and we'll introduce our second speaker for the day.
Well, this one is very special for me because Shannon is a dear friend. And we met 18 years ago, and coincidentally, our husbands have the same name. So at times it gets confusing. Who are we talking about? More or less like who's on first at part times. Those of you in baseball will get that reference, hopefully. But it's a really rare and wonderful thing and a blessing to encounter people and have people in your life that are friends, but really friends that feel like family. So she comes from a wonderful family. They've kind of taken us in, and we've shared this journey. Well, really, she's done most of the work. I've been watching and observing and being proud of her. But I do admire her a lot for many things. And it's not to put it all into a short introduction, but I want to give you an idea. I admire her for tenacity that she has, for her drive and generosity and strength. And if I would have to describe her in one word, I think that would be unstoppable, because she really is. And one thing that I've learned from her is that obstacles are merely just opportunities to be creative about how do you move on, how do you solve these problems, how do you build yourself up, how do you work hard and move forward, how do you push yourself. So she inspires me, and I know that she will inspire you. Please welcome Shannon Roganovic.
Do you have a clicker? Thank you. Appreciate it. I must be really scary because I feel like all of you are in the back of the room. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be part of this and the opportunity to speak to all of you, because I feel like it was yesterday that I was sitting in a very similar seat trying to listen to people figure out what my journey was. And I searched for a while. So how I started, I'll tell you a little bit about this MP360 portfolio. MP360 is a design and build company, but we have 3 different branches: Luho Cabinetry, Design and Build, and MP360 Rentals, which was previously WE Rentals. I am a co-owner, and I also operate as the CEO, CFO of the organization. But how I got started, my first big kid job was with Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. So it was a Fortune 500 company. If you guys don't know about Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, after 2020, I think that everybody really knows that they are the largest manufacturer of pharmaceuticals in the entire world. They do billions of dollars in revenue. They have thousands of employees. So a little bit different than the entrepreneurial route. So I started in this company in a sales capacity, and about a year and a half in, I thought, man, I've learned a lot. I learned about personality types, how to negotiate, the supply chain management. If you're a driver, if you're interpersonal, if you're analytical, how do you communicate with these people? But I also felt, as an employee, there was something more that I was longing to do. The first thing that I needed to learn, though, and I love this quote, is I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something. But I can't accept not trying. And we all know who Michael Jordan is, and he really embodied this. We all know about his failure, and I believe it was junior high school when he didn't make the team. And then now, we all know that he is probably the most infamous basketball player that there ever was. He embraced the opportunity of failure, and he turned it into an opportunity that we all know him today, not only in basketball, but really him and his mother as entrepreneurs, what they did with Nike. I think we all know that story. Thank you, Netflix. So I started out with Pfizer, and it was a great company to learn organization, sales. But I said, okay, what am I going to do? So I took the opportunity through many successes at Pfizer. They allowed me and paid for my master's degree, so I appreciated them for that as well. But I had an itch to do more. So after that, I moved into the role of LifeCell Biologic Tissue. So LifeCell is a smaller company than Pfizer, but they sell and are the #1 distributor for a cellular dermis that is used in breast reconstructive surgery after mastectomy, so specifically for cancer patients. They also have tissue perfusion assessment systems that are used intraoperatively to see what the viability is of that skin so that you can save lives, so that you can do better surgeries. I really enjoyed working for this company because I worked with a lot of smart people, a lot of very driven people. But I also had a boss who saw something in me that I don't think I had identified yet, and that was an entrepreneurial spirit. He told me one time in one of my reviews, he said, "Shannon, you're the most entrepreneurial person I've ever met. I have no idea why you're working in corporate." And at that point, I didn't quite grasp what he was saying. So he nurtured something in me that said, okay, so what are your ideas? And together we developed a program that was for a multidisciplinary approach, referral patterns, that was different than the organization had ever seen. So not only were we becoming clinical, but we were doing more in the business capacity that allowed us to talk to the C-suite, to nurses, to all of the medical practitioners. We were able to roll this out to the whole company, and then later Allergan bought the company, and we were able to do this throughout the whole country. So it was a very early opportunity that I had in a corporate setting to use this skill set in a new way and say we can do more. At that point though, what had happened, two things, something in my personal life and something with the corporate. My brother came to me, who had helped build a company with my parents, which has later become MP360 Rentals, and he said, "Shannon, Mom and Dad at some point are gonna wanna retire, and I need a business partner." And I said, "Well, that is great, but I'm not it. I'm not that person for you. Like, I've got a great job, I make great money, I have medical benefits, my husband is starting his own company, and I have to be the breadwinner at this point while he's developing his company. Can't do it." And he said, "Okay, just think about it." So he came back to me a second time, and he said, "Okay, I've given you time, I need you." He said, "I know how to work with my hands. I know how to build properties from ground up. I know how to remodel, but I need someone that has that business acumen." And I turned him down again. I'm such a good sister, right? Kept turning him down. So what I can say with Nolan, my brother, is that fortune is always in the follow-up. It doesn't matter if you own your own business, if you are working corporate, follow up, follow up, follow up. Don't ever give up. He never gave up on me. So that third time, what was happening with our company is that Allergan bought LifeCell, which changed the dynamic. I knew what it was like to work for a pharmaceutical company, and I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to be in a box. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it, which was a little crazy. I had two really little kids. I had a husband that was making about $500, maybe $1,000 a month. We had no income, so it was only savings. And I said, we're going to jump. We're going to jump. We're not going to have any medical benefits. We're not going to have any stability, and we're going to do it. And so at that time, my brother and I said, okay, what can we do in Kansas City? By the way, neither of us are from Kansas City. We're both from a small town. And we jumped. We said, okay, let's do this. How do we start? So we started flipping. We bought some properties, we flipped them, and boy, did we fail. Over and over again. It was like we had this gravitational force to say, let's find every bad contractor in town and see how much money they can spend, how over budget they can be, how many times that we won't finish a project. It was awful. And all of our investment was in it. So there was no other funds that we could take from. And we said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So what we knew that we could do is we could finish the project. We could work until midnight or 1 a.m. and we were going to get them done. So we did, night after night after night, and then my wonderful family would help us on the weekends, and we finished them. Now, we didn't make money, but at least we broke even. And what we did have, what we took from that is, they looked great. Every one of our projects, whether or not we made money, always looked phenomenal. Because we said, if we're going to put anything out into the world, it's going to be great. We're not going to rush. We're not going to do it too fast. We're not going to cut corners. We're going to put a product out there that we can be proud of. What we were doing, though, as you can see here, is we were taking some risks. So I'm going to take a step back, and then we'll go forward a little bit. So when I Googled, getting ready to talk to you guys today, what are the basics of entrepreneurship, this came up. A person who understands the risk of starting a new venture. Or undertakes, excuse me. Hold that word risk in your mind. And then the second aspect was, an entrepreneur creates a firm or business to realize their idea, known as entrepreneurship, which aggregates capital, labor, I think the definition needs resources, in order to produce goods or a service for profit. Okay, that's the 1,000-foot view. So in this moment, what Nolan and I, my brother, were doing was creating something that had value, but we didn't realize it. We were creating a portfolio for the world to see. Okay? So that is really important because, as we move on to this next slide, this is where MP360 Design and Build was made. What Nolan and I realized that we were really bad at is staying on budget because we really liked nice things. Okay, so we were always over budget. And what's unique, though, is if you know anything about the residential market, you have appraisers. So they're going to appraise a house, and typically a house is not going to sell for over an appraised value. So we were selling our houses over and over and over again for above appraised value because they were nice. They were nicer than anything in the neighborhood. We were doing everything wrong. We're putting too much money into houses. We were selling them for more, but we were having the nicest house in the street, not supposed to do that. So everything wrong we did, but every wrong move we made a decision to say, this is an opportunity. What have we discovered? What have we learned? We learned that people liked our stuff. So eventually, people said, hey, I saw this on Facebook, or I saw a post. Can you remodel my house? So we said, okay. Right there, we found two things. We found that there's a ton of bad contractors out there. And we found that we had something that was unique, that we put a great product out there. That people desired what we had, but how could we package that in a way that made sense for our clients? So we really don't do flips anymore. We do luxury remodeling. We build from ground up new homes. And that's what MP360 is all about. The problem is what you see in residential remodel and residential new build is you will hear people left and right talk about a bad contractor. I keep saying that over and over. It's like a theme. So what does that mean? There's a gap. There's a gap in the market. So how do we do it better? Well, I took my background in understanding how to communicate with people, infrastructure, communication. That's what people want. They want to feel safe. We know they're going to get to a great product. We can visualize what that's going to look like. But a lot of people can't do that. We know that we're going to be there for them, but they don't know us. We're strangers. So how do we make this experience something that's super meaningful for them? You can't just provide the product, but it has to be everything. So now when you look at us today, we have designers that work in-house. They do CAD drawings, 3D renderings. We do everything to spec, everything's custom, but we have reproducible results. We have invested in a platform that we communicate with people so that they know what's going on. We have constant dialogue, and we do it in a meaningful way that they feel like someone is taking care of them through this process. Every one of our projects is unique. It's all 100% custom, but everyone knows now what the end result's going to be, and they feel taken care of. So our next company is Lujo Cabinetry. Lujo in Spanish means luxury. So this was another gap that we found. People in the Midwest are really not great at cabinets. They just aren't. We're behind the curve like 15 years. If you go to the West Coast, the East Coast, they're doing manufactured cabinets, high-end. Europe, same thing. But they're not doing that very, very well in the Midwest. So we said, okay, two things. How do we become more vertically integrated? How can we make this a better experience? Where are people having challenges? And it's in cabinetry. So we looked all over the country and identified 2 different cabinet lines. Rut Cabinetry, they're out of Pennsylvania, and Crystal Cabinetry, they're up in north of Minnesota. They operate and they think just like us. So we've partnered with them. We do all the specifications in-house, down to 1/32 of an inch, and they will build anything we draw. Anything that we dream, they'll make. We ship it in, they have lifetime warranties. We can control our timelines. We do a lot of Gantt charts, timelines. We'd like to meet those. Makes people happy when we're done on time. But we were still missing something, and it was a European flair. Like Milena said, my husband, Vladimir, comes from Europe. My sister-in-law comes from Iceland. My brother-in-law comes from Barcelona. I don't know how this happened, but it did. So we wanted to bring something to the Midwest that you rarely can find, and if you do, it's a fortune. And it's custom cabinetry from Europe, from overseas. So we became importers. Why not? Why not? So we found a line called Doca out of Barcelona, Spain, that we also can spec out to a millimeter. That's how specific and precise it is. And we have now integrated that as another company, but it is a sister company and works hand in hand with MP360. Our third company is MP360 Rentals. This was the company that my parents started. It's grown about 30% in the last 6 years since we've taken it over. I say taken it over lightly. My mother's here today. She still comes into the office 3 days a week. She is irreplaceable because her knowledge is so robust. And this is a company that really is where it all started because it taught my brother how to work with his hands. And not only did it teach him that, but it allowed him to transfer that knowledge and that information to all of our crews. And as I said, we found a lot of bad contractors, but along the way we found a few that were excellent. And they wanted to grow. They wanted to learn. They had that same mentality. So my brother was able to teach them to work with their hands and not to settle for second best. And that is something that we will always be grateful for. We have leveraged assets to help grow our other companies. And on the other side, we have been able to use our resources that we have developed through our luxury remodel and design and build company to help with rentals whenever we need that as well. So every company that we have developed, we have found gaps, and we said, let's do it better. And they all lean on one another. Your previous speaker, Steve, was talking about residual income. That's this company for us. As long as we do a good job, have good customer service, always keep everything rented, this is residual income. The other, it's not. Those are things that you have to go out and get sales every day. So we try to touch different types of the marketplace, all within residential. Okay, renters, luxury market, cabinetry, as you see, they all go together, but they all are identified in different spaces that can work cohesively but independently. So, talking about risk, I took a risk by putting this up there. I'm hoping the audience is old enough that you've all seen Risky Business, but it is definitely part of something that you have to embrace, to know there is risk, there is challenges, you can overcome them. So what does it take? Okay, so this is how I feel on a daily basis. How far can you stretch Elastigirl? And there I am. That's me. Because I'm not only an entrepreneur, I am not only a woman entrepreneur in construction, which is really just crazy, but I'm a mom. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I coach my kids' volleyball team, my husband coaches his kids, or our kids' soccer team. You're pulled in a lot of different directions. So how do you do it? There is a lot of hype about balance. You have to be very balanced. Well, I want to be very honest to say initially there's not. There's not. When you're starting a company from scratch, the work-life balance doesn't exist. And I say, well, maybe in 10 years. Let's talk about balance in 10 years. Because you have to put in the time, the effort. When I was preparing this, I literally just was kind of thinking, what are the things that I did when I started our businesses? And I just kind of started typing them. Then I ran out of room, so I stopped. So I didn't even put a lot of effort into this list. So mission and vision. What's your product? Where are you going? That's the idea. So many people in business fail, though, because they have a great idea, but you have to have the structure behind it. It's really nice in our organization that I have the idea man, which is my brother. I have somebody that takes care of the technology and marketing, which is my husband. We're crazy. We work together. We love each other. We vacation together. We can't get enough of each other. But it's mission, it's vision, it's structure. What platforms? What's the information systems? What's the technology? What does that look like for you? What do you want it to look like for your end client? There's so many things that go on behind the scenes that are equally as important to the product that you put out there. So understanding that is what can make you successful, not just an idea. And then I have this in all capital for a reason. We're going to get back to it, but people. People are so important. The right people are so important. Capital, where are you going to get your funds? What are your resources? Coordination of all things, whether it's a supply chain management, your infrastructure. How do you coordinate all aspects? Insurance, we've talked about a lot insurance. I obviously cannot speak to it like your previous speaker, but I can tell you just in our business, we talk a lot about work comp, general liability, umbrella, builder's risk, understanding those aspects. I mean, you have to at least understand them. It can't be somebody else's job to understand your business structure. Accounting, whether or not you want to be an accountant, you have to understand the basics. You have to understand that in order to make the best decisions for your business. Are you going to be an LLC? Are you a partnership? Are you a sole proprietor? Are you an LLC, taxed like an S Corp? Are you incorporated? Why? All of ours are not the same. We have a partnership. We have LLCs that are taxed like S Corp because they are taxed differently. And depending on how you make your money, it's going to be different. I can tell you our residential real estate that we do rentals, it's a partnership. Our design and build company and Luho Cabinetry are LLCs taxed like S Corps, all for a reason. All for a reason. So these are things that you have to think about. Or I would at least suggest that you try to think about these because I feel like they're very important for success. HR, whenever you start building a system, you can't just hire people and just say, okay, what are they have goals. They have motivations. You have to understand that and allow them to grow and encourage them to grow and understand what those needs are with their annual reviews. Is it financial? Is it time off with their family? These are all different things that we had to develop from scratch. Company morale, environment, tracking systems for success. That goes back up to the infrastructure. How can you be successful if you're going into something blind? And we were for many years because it's a lot of effort to build those systems. You have to put you can have a great platform, but if you're not putting the information in correctly, it's not going to be meaningful. And if you're not tracking, then you don't really know if you're successful. Advertising, social media, trade organizations, executing the job, products or services. So eventually, once you have the structure, you can hire people to do these different jobs, but who's going to build it? People. Don't ever underestimate how important having the right people on your team is. I believe this 1,000%. Jim Collins also agrees with me. That was nice of him to write a book about my thoughts. People are not your most important asset. The right people are. I can tell you from my personal experience, sometimes I feel like I'm doing someone a favor by keeping them on longer if they're not the right fit. It doesn't just hurt them by not being in the right place. It hurts every single person that's part of your organization and your clients and your customers. The wrong people, even if your thought process is good, can bring down an organization. The right people make all the difference in the world. And I don't just mean within your organization, I mean in your life. These are my people. My mom, my sister, my husband, my parent-in-laws, all of these people are part of what makes me who I am. Milena and Vladimir up here too, they're my people. My husband, Chief Information Officer, Chief Operations, our designer, Brett, does all of our coordination, and our superintendent. Annette is like an accounting genius. I can't do it without them. And let me tell you, there are some people along the way that have made it really hard for us to do what we want to do. But now I know, and I will never let go of the people that are in it together. We do this together, not as individuals. So who is in your circle? Think about it. Are they bringing you up? Are they bringing you down? What are you giving to them? It works both ways. So I think that this is a very important part of the people conversation. So after you build and kind of identify what you are wanting to do with your organization and the structure, it's really important to know, what do you do well? What do you not do well? Or what do you do okay? You can do it, but really somebody else can do it better. Because when you identify what we do well, what we want to do well, areas that we want to grow, and what can be paid to be done. These are important things, because there are things that we think, okay, even if we could do everything well, which we can, I need more than 4 hours of sleep. I just do, to operate. I get very cranky if I don't get 7, 8 hours of sleep. So who are those people that accentuate you and bring your organization together as a whole? And how do you treat them? Again, it's got to be a two-way street. Okay, so I've heard a lot of people talk about challenges. I think it's really important to realize not only to have a growth mindset, but that every entrepreneur that I have ever met that is very successful, or business person, it is very easy, once they're into that area of success, to say it must have been easier for them. Somebody must have given them money, somebody gave them an opportunity that I didn't have. It's very easy to say it was easier for them and make excuses of why they're successful and why you haven't reached your goals. Your focus might be in the wrong place. Every person that I know that has had wild success has put in the time, the energy, the effort. They have had tons of challenges, but they took the challenge and pivoted it to figure out the opportunity. It's not just residential. Doesn't matter if it's, I think Hugh was a speaker for you. I mean, IT, information systems, where are there gaps? How do you fill that? And how do you package something so that it is valuable to your end client, your end user? How do you create that relationship? And the other part is everybody can sell something once. But how do you put it into a package that now can be sold over and over and over and over? If you're not building a structure, and if you're making the same mistakes over and over again, you're never going to get there. So write down, type up, make Excel spreadsheets. What did I do wrong? And how do I do it better next time? Okay, now we can get to our 10-year mark. Understanding enough in fulfillment. I've heard more than one person say, you know, money's not everything, and I couldn't agree more. Now, it is not fun to not have enough money. We can all agree on that. But money is just, like in your economics class, has a diminishing return once you reach a certain point. So you have to have enough money to do the things that you want to do, to pay your bills, to maybe go on a couple of nice trips, things like that. You reach, there are studies, I'm not just making this up. You reach a certain point, and you're making more money and you're unhappy. Why is that? What is enough? Well, what makes you full as a person? It's the people. It's the community. It's giving back. It is having success. But all of these 7 areas, there's a lot of very successful people. Read some of these books that talk about these 7 areas of fulfillment. How do you feel about your physicality? How do you feel about your spirituality? All of these make us whole. And having those people to hold you accountable when you get off of that path that you always intended to be on and to pull you back, just as important. And to do that for a friend in a very nice and gentle way will also help. So I feel that this is very important at some point, that you reflect on who you want to be and you stay true to yourself. I think that there is a misperception about making money, about businesses, that you have to be unethical to be successful. Completely disagree. I think if you do things the right way, and if you treat people well, and if you produce something that is special, people will come back for it over and over again. So there's nothing wrong with making money. But there is something wrong with making it the wrong way. If you make a mistake and you lose some money, okay, that's short-sighted though. I made a mistake, I'm gonna pay for it, but now from that mistake, how do I make 10-fold more money next time because I'm gonna do it better, I'm not gonna make that mistake again. So take your mistakes and say that was an area where I could grow. I'm gonna grow from it. If you're always pointing the finger at, well, this didn't work out because of this, 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 and this, well, that's the type of life that you might lead. So it's a choice. It's a choice that we make. It's the will that we want to have to be successful in whatever we choose to be. I think that this is the entrepreneurial mentality, but I feel like it can be put into any industry that you choose for your destiny. I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good presentation. So questions? Please raise your hands if you have questions for Shannon. I know there's some out there, so.
Hi, I wanted to ask how worth and how big was your first investment when you started flipping houses, and how much like handwork you needed to put in order to make it work?
So our first flip, we took down to the studs. We did all new electrical, sheetrock, we did framing, we vaulted the roof. We had to bury an electrical line, all new flooring, all new cabinetry, countertops. It was, I believe there was a basement, so it was 1,300 square feet. With the basement, it was about 2,600 square feet. Every surface was touched, exterior and interior. How much, I mean, I laid tile, I've roofed houses. I have not laid hardwood floor because I'm not good at it. I've painted a lot. I mean, every surface was touched. Every surface was touched. Termites, got to get rid of the termites. So, yeah. The good thing is, though, you know a lot about houses. Remodel is much harder than new build. A lot of people have a misunderstanding of that. If you can remodel a house and make it look like it was always in the state where it is when you're done, make it look natural, you can build.
Question back there.
All right. You have 3 businesses, so
Sorry.
My
I
bad.
was like, where is it coming from?
You mentioned you have 3 businesses, and I mean, I would think that's quite a lot. So, are they all equally treated? Is there a business that is maybe more the cash cow in your group of businesses, or is there a priority work you have, or how do you handle this?
That's a very good question. So my mom, who's over here, actually still oversees the rental business. So she's the person that everybody calls, and then she comes to me if she needs to discuss something. So the rental business, they all take priority. The 2 right now that are taking the most priority are the design and build company and the rentals. Rentals is because it is asset heavy, cash poor. That is very, very common if you own property. But because you have assets, you can leverage those in order to get lines of credits, things like that you might need for other companies. Design and build is, and that actually goes back to the LLC comment that I made earlier. We have our design and build in both Luho Cabinetry. They produce more cash but are light on assets. So therefore, those are LLCs taxed like an S Corp. And the reason for that is that you don't have to pay an extra unemployment tax. Okay, so that's actually really important. Whereas our rental business is an LLC because that passes through to the owners. So very good question. Rentals is definitely how I look at a 401k. That's my long-term investment. If I want to sell in the future, I have that. If I need to leverage funds, I have that. But I don't make a ton of revenue off of it. I make most of the income that we bring in for our family from the Luho Cabinetry and the design and build company. Good question.
Who else? No other questions?
From all these years that you've been in business, like what have you realized that works with the public? Like how you make them connect with people and make them feel like your business is meaningful?
Well, social media, I think, has become a big aspect of everyone's life. 2020 helped that. So we post a lot. We do invest a lot of marketing and advertising instead of print media, which used to be the gold standard. We do this a lot through social media now. But as far as connecting, first of all, almost on every sales call, either my brother goes on every one, and then I do, and another person. There's always 2 of us. I think the first connection is the most important, is to give people time to really try to understand what their needs are, what their wants are, connecting with them on a deeper level that your project and what we're doing we understand is meaningful to you. But then I also think the follow-up, the constant communication, whether it's a phone call, whether it's updates, that's really meaningful too, because people miss doing that. And part of that is through not just how you interact and you treat people, eye contact, communication, understanding, really feeling like they matter, because they do. But it's also the platforms that you set up so that you have the ability, whether you're on site or in the office, that someone's always getting back to them. People just want to feel heard and understood. And sometimes we can do the work, but forget that we're working for people who have those needs. So I think that that's key.
At what point, because you brought it up in your presentation, at what point did you realize you had that moment of fulfillment and you were proud of what you have created?
You know, I feel like that now. It took a long time. I would say when we were building our businesses, it took about 7 years. I said 10, but I think 7 years, because there was just so much work to be done. I'm exceptionally proud today of everyone that I work with and the work that we do. I never go to sleep. You always have issues, right? You have challenges and issues. That's just part of business. But I never go to bed thinking I didn't give 100% or everyone on my team did, or if we messed up that it was intentional or we didn't own a mistake. I think that whenever you can get to a place where you are not feeling like you're guessing, that you're tweaking, that is really a moment of fulfillment to me. Like, hey, we got there, we understand this business, and we're experts at what we do. That's very meaningful. And then I think it's also, this is an honor, right? That somebody actually thinks what we're doing is meaningful enough to speak to the next generation of what we're doing. This is very meaningful, because I feel like in some way, maybe one of you takes something from what I say today. And I had that. I know a lot of people say, hey, I did all this on my own. Nobody does anything on their own. If it's somebody that watches your kid late at night, or I was on a ski trip and I had to let 3 people go. And that means I got 200 emails every day that I was having to filter through, and I had to make sure every single one of them were answered. I was on a ski trip with my sister. She's one of my people. And I about broke down because I'm like, this is just too much and not sustainable. And I was supposed to be making dinner with her for Thanksgiving. She said, hey, I know where you are. She's very successful as well. She said, I know where you are. Don't worry about it. I'm going to make it. Just sit here with your computer, your wine. Just be here. Do what you need to do. I know it sounds silly, but the moment of fulfillment is to say, I know where you are, and I'm here for you. And to understand that you have that type of love in your life, and that you've made connections, whether it's your sister or your friend, that will do that for you, that's huge. I could have lost everything, but to know that those people will go to that extent, that's really a huge, great fulfillment for me.
I got a question back there. Yeah, back there.
Back here.
Hi, sorry.
No worries. I wanted to expand on the sustainability thing that you talk about. I know, like, you felt the stress, and you right now probably have a 10, 15, 20-year-long career to keep working on your 3 companies, and you spoke about the residential company being your residual income, your 401k. Despite this, you have 2 other companies that are built from the ground up from you and your brother. How do you plan on, like, making them self-sustainable, or what is your career path there, selling them in the future, closing them? I don't know if you have thought about it, and I just wanted to hear the feedback.
I do think about it. It's a really good question. So first of all, the sustainability is building systems while you're working through and solving problems. So every time we put a system in place, we add it to our manual so that the next person that trained knows how to do it. We also try to always make sure that I understand a system so that if I were to put somebody in it, they can do it easily. So what we do is actually very complicated. We work with hundreds of vendors, and every project has thousands of components that have to be as perfect as human hands can make. But how do you break those down into an infrastructure that are many parts that all can work together, and that you can take yourself out of that equation and it still continue forward? If you are left being the only one in your company that understands how it works, then it's not sustainable. You have to track what you're doing, and you have to always be making sure that you are teaching those parts so that you are replaceable. You want to be replaceable, really. So that's how we do it. I'm not there yet. I am not there yet. But I now can go on vacations for 2 weeks and not answer my phone. And I could not do that for 7 years. So that's pretty good.
Any other questions? Oh, hold on, we'll get to Mike over here.
Oh. I actually knew where your question was coming from, though. The mics throw me off. I'm like, who's talking to me?
There was a time in your life where you questioned yourself if you were going towards the right path, or where you just felt like overwhelmed and like lost?
Was there a time? I
Yeah,
feel
and
like
like
that
what-
a lot of times. Yes,
And what did you do
absolutely.
to-
I remember laying in bed at night thinking, please God, let me know if I'm supposed to be doing this, or am I done? Are you sending me a different way? And in those times, I would just keep getting up and working for the people that work with me, and something would happen. You know, we've had moments where, honestly, last year was very difficult for everyone in the construction industry, everyone in the building, whether it's commercial or residential, very difficult. There were people that were coming to us left and right saying, hey, do you have business for us? Do you have any work for us? And somehow we just kept making it through. We are doing this year, oh man, about 250% over last year. And you doubt yourself, but those are the times that those people support you, and you keep moving forward, and something always happens. I mean, what happened with us is we just kept getting calls and more calls and more calls. And the times that we didn't, we said, okay, that means we're not putting ourselves out there to the world enough, because we know that we have something special. People don't know about us. So we got up and kept working. But yeah, there's times all the time that you doubt yourself, and it's good. It's good to doubt yourself, because you have to do a self-check, in my opinion, because we can't always be right, right? So in those moments you say, okay, am I on the right path? Am I not on the right path? And you talk to people around you that have been in the business, that are mentors, that they will help you as well. Sometimes when you can't see clearly, well, then look to someone that has been where you are, or has been in a similar situation, whether it's the same industry or not. They'll help guide you.
And then I have one more question. So, I mean, the construction industry the majority is men.
Mm-hmm.
So you as a woman, like, what is the piece of advice you will tell to all of the other women right here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like just as, I don't know, like advice you will give us to keep going and not being, I don't know, I can find a word, like intimidated. Yeah.
Well, I could talk about this a long time. It's really interesting, because I hear a lot of successful women talk about breaking barriers, breaking glass ceilings, it being very difficult. I have to give credit to my mother. I think she was a woman that was in business long before it was popular for women to do hard things in business. And I don't know if that was just instilled in me and my sister. I have never felt that being a woman has prevented me from doing anything. I just never put it in my mind. I hear the conversation all the time of, hey, I'm a woman, I'm doing hard things. Or it was harder because I am a woman. I've just thought, what's my goal? I'm going to do it. I didn't look at my ethnicity or my gender as ever being part of the equation. And I think a lot of people do, so then it's there. And it's like, oh, this is hard because of. And I say, well, what's my goal? I'm going to reach it. It's a mentality. And I know it's out there. But I personally feel that I don't live in a country where it might be as big of an issue where it is in some places. And I am sensitive to that issue and that topic that goes on throughout the world. But that's really how I've handled it, is that I've just never let it be part of the equation.
Time for one or two more.
Thank you. Hi, I was wondering regarding your social media, what platforms and what content would you say benefited the companies the most for you?
So we're still developing it. I definitely am not going to say we have it all figured out, because we are definitely in the midst of the information age, and as soon as you think you have it figured out, they change the algorithms and things like that, and your hashtags and whatnot. So we use Facebook. We use also, well, I don't think we have Twitter started yet, but we'll be starting Twitter. We use Instagram a lot as well. Those are probably the two primary. Of course, you have to have good websites, and they have to function with high functionality, so they're not cumbersome to get through. That's where we are. It will probably end up changing it in some way. We don't use, at this point, a lot of Google ads or click ads. I know a lot of people have had great success with it. We just haven't had to yet. We are very much based on referrals as well. So as long as we're putting everything out there, we tend to get a lot of followers. And then that, coupled with referrals, has really been our equation for success at this point.
Who wants a final question? Anybody? All right, if that's it, again, thank you very much, Shannon.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break, and then Mel will wrap up the first day. So we'll take about a 3-4 minute break, or about a 5-minute break, and we'll be back.